If you buy ETFs in Germany, there's a good chance your investing app will take money from you even if you didn't sell anything. And every year, it catches investors off guard. So in the next few minutes, I'll show you when you pay it and when you don't, how to estimate your ETF tax, and the one mistake that can turn this into a paperwork headache. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Ahsan, and on this channel, we discuss how to build wealth in Germany. So Germany treats some ETF gains like they have already been realized. And that's where this whole fictitious gain idea comes from. The basic intention here with the German government is to tax distributing ETFs and accumulating ETFs more similarly. With a distributing ETF, you get dividend payouts, so taxes can be withheld right away. With an accumulating ETF, the dividends are reinvested inside the fund or the ETF, so you don't receive cash. So historically, you could delay taxes until you sell. That's the tax deferral effect, which is great if you are using accumulating ETFs. So to reduce that advantage, Germany introduced the 4-Pauschale, a way to tax a minimum assumed return each year for funds and ETFs. Those are collected usually at the start of the year. The timing of this ETFs is what surprises people. You pay the 4-Pauschale with a 1-year delay. So the 4-Pauschale or the German ETF tax for the current year is considered received on the first working day of the next year. And the broker or your investing app typically handles the tax around that time. That's why you might see a mysterious withdrawal from your account by your broker in January. But this only happens if you are using a German broker with a connection with the finance arm. For international brokers, you will have to declare this in your tax declaration. So what exactly is this 4-Pauschale? Well, it's basically Germany saying if your invested ETF went up, we assume you earn at least some return based on a reference interest rate, and we will tax that minimum amount now-ish. Not your full gain and not a random number. A capped rule-based baseline return. So let me share a simple way of calculating this 4-Pauschale. For equity funds and ETFs, you can use this rough method. Start with the value of your ETF at the beginning of the year, typically 1st of January. Multiply the basis or base interest rate for that year. Then multiply by 70%. Yes, the law literally uses 70%. That result is your basis Ertrag or base return. For 2025, the official basis is 2.53%. So the rough base return rate becomes 2.53% multiplied by 70%, which is equal to 1.771%. So if you had 10,000 euros at the start of 2025, the calculation becomes 10,000 multiplied by 2.53 multiplied by 70%, which is equal to 177.1 euro base return. That's not the tax yet. That's the base amount that might be taxed. Now the actual taxes. Germany's withholding tax on capital gains is typically 25% plus solidarity surcharge, which is 5.5% on that tax, plus church tax if it is applicable. And for equity heavy funds, there's usually a 30% partial exemption, meaning only 70% of a certain fund income is taxable. So in many common cases, the effective burden on that base amount ends up somewhere around the high teens percentage range for equity ETFs, which is why people see numbers like 40 to 50 euros per 10,000 euros, depending on exact details. For most people, the average would be 36 euros per 10,000 euros of equity ETFs as a maximum orientation value, and higher for funds without that equity partial exemption. I know this is a very hard topic and I've put in a lot of work. So please hit the like button if you're getting value from this video and consider subscribing. Now you might ask, do I always pay this 4-Pauschale? Well, there are 3 ways or options where the 4-Pauschale is reduced or becomes zero. Number 1, with distributing ETFs. If your ETF distributes income during the year, those distributions already got taxed, so they reduce the amount of 4-Pauschale left to tax. Number 2, your ETF didn't actually gain enough. The 4-Pauschale is capped by the ETF's actual price gain in the year. If your ETF went up only a little, the taxable amount cannot exceed that actual gain. If your ETF ended the year down overall, then there's no positive gain or pre-tax, so the 4-Pauschale can be zero. Number 3, Basisins is 0 or negative. If the Basisins is effectively not positive, the whole mechanism can collapse to 0. This is exactly why most of you never really heard about this tax. As in the recent history, the effective interest rate only became positive since 2022. So many investors saw no for our paushale. A few things you might want to do right after you finish watching this video, if you do not want to face additional paperwork, is to first make sure your Freistellungsauftrag is set. In Germany, you get a saver's allowance or a Sparerpauschbetrag of 1,000 euros per person and 2,000 euros for married couples filing jointly. If your Freistellungsauftrag is active and not already used up, your broker can use it to cover taxes, including the Vorabpauschale. This tax event happens in early January for the prior years Vorabpauschale. So the relevant allowance is basically your New Year's allowance, which is usually unused unless you instantly used it elsewhere. This is why for many people, January is actually the least painful month for this tax. Also, keep enough cash in the settlement account if your allowance doesn't cover it or you didn't set it. Your broker will try to withhold the tax from your cash balance. And if your cash balance is 0 because you're fully invested, then you can get into the annoying zone because some banks can pull from other linked accounts like a current account at the same bank. Others cannot. And brokers differ a lot in how they handle it. So if the broker cannot collect, they may notify you, and if it remains unpaid, you may end up having to handle the capital income via your tax return using the form KAP. This is also what you would have to do if your investing app is not German and not connected with the Finanzamt. For people who are using Scalable Capital, you should receive a letter from Scalable Capital regarding the Vorabpauschale by the beginning of December. This is what I got from them. This clearly states how much preliminary lump sum tax is due from my Scalable Capital portfolio. They also recommend adding additional funds into my account if this tax is higher than my tax exemption order. In my case, the amount is quite small and my tax-free allowance can easily cover this tax. You can also find this letter by going to your profile, then mailbox, and then the preliminary lump sum tax message. Also, let me know in the comments if you want me to make a video on how to declare this Vorabpauschale in a tax return if your broker doesn't support auto-submission. In any case, I would recommend adding 50 euros per 10,000 euros invested in ETFs to your investment account as cash just to be safe. What about savings plan? How does one calculate the Vorabpauschale for that? This is where things can get interesting because each monthly buy was held for a different fraction of the year. Here the base return part is effectively weighed by months held. The earlier in the year you bought, the more it counts. So your June purchase might count for roughly half of the year, while your December buy would count for about 1/12. This is why if you invest using a dollar cost averaging method or SIP, you either accept a rough estimate, rely on broker reporting, or use tools that do the heavy lifting. Remember that paying the Vorabpauschale doesn't mean you're getting double taxed forever. Amounts paid can matter later when you actually sell because the system tracks taxation over time. But Germany being Germany, you always pay too much in taxes. But thankfully, there are ways to optimize your taxes and legally pay less taxes. In this video, I talk with a financial expert on how to do that. And in this video, I share how to start a business in Germany in 5 simple steps.